So we're on lab 3. We're going to create a graphic for our VAV controllers that looks something like this. So there's some built-in Duct images that we can use. And then these little graphical widgets that we use to insert in the graphic, they're referred to as components. So when we create a graphic, we have to tell the software what points we want to make available for use on the graphic. And then of those points, which ones should we have components for. And so it's easier to add them in the beginning than to add them after you've already created the graphic. You certainly can, but it's a little bit easier if you make the correct choice in the beginning. And then there's also an easy way to make what's referred to as an overview box, which is just kind of like a table of points. And then here where you see like gears, those are writable points that you could change. These actually, the zone temp alarm and the heating requirement, those shouldn't be writable. And so we're going to create a graphic with some components, add some overview boxes. And when we make a graphic, we're not really making it for a specific controller, but instead we're going to make it for a group of controllers, really. So in this case, we're going to make a graphic for every equip tagged as a VAV, so that way we can build one graphic that's used by many different controllers. So let's get started there. So in the navigation bar, it says pick one of your VAV controllers. So going back to Chrome, make sure you have one of the VAVs in your nav bar here. If not, pick one of the VAVs on either of the two floors. And then you can go to the menu. And then there's Graphics Builder is a system integrator app that we use to create the graphic. And then once we've created the graphic, we'll use the Graphics End User app to actually view it. But in this case, pick Graphics Builder, and then in the menu that pops behind, it is scrollable. There's like a little fourth entry there. But just click New to create a new graphic. And then you can give the graphic a name. I think it says something like My VAV. Yep, there. So I'll just call it My VAV. The graphic template tells the software kind of what ductwork to include. So VAV template is a short section of duct that we can put in like a flow ring and stuff like that. The RTU template is for like a simpler rooftop or air handling unit with just a supply fan, not a return fan. And then the air handler template has more ductwork so that you can insert like a supply and a return fan. And then blank is anything else where you don't want any of the default duct options. So I'll pick VAV template. So this graphic on filter again is telling us which equips are going to use this graphic. So any equip in the database that's tagged as the VAV will use this graphic. And you can change those filters. By default, it's going to show you the tags that go along with whatever equip you've selected in your nav location. And then there's three choices in terms of the type of graphic. Relative means that more than one equip is going to use the graphic. And so by tags means it's not really actually going to care about the point names. It's going to look at the tags associated with the point names. So for like the zone temperature point, it's not going to be looking for a point named zone temperature. It's going to be looking for a point with zone plus air plus temp plus sensor, that type of thing. And so that can be helpful, especially if you're doing like a real integration project where maybe you have controllers from different manufacturers and the default names are different, and then you don't have to remember when you add them to make sure they're all named very specifically to be the same. And they don't have to be the same sort of object instances in terms of BACnet. In an ASI controller, the zone temperature input could be analog input instance 0 in another BACnet controller right on the network that you're integrating with. The zone temperature might be analog input instance 4. And so it doesn't care that they're in different channels. It just is going to be looking for tags. Another relative choice is by nav name, and that's where it is going to just very specifically look in the database to make sure the names match. And so that can be made to work, but you have to be careful, especially if you're, cloning at different points or you're integrating different controllers. If your nav names don't match, then the graphics might have some trouble. So I'm going to leave it at relative by tags. Tagging is relatively new to most people, but I think it's going to become more prevalent in our industry. Project Haystack's been around for a while now, and Astra is finally getting behind tagging. Tritium's making a stronger kind of push or dependency on tagging, and that tends to move the industry a little bit too. So I think tagging is something that you'll find you're going to have to learn it at some point, most likely, so you might as well start learning about it now. The last choice is absolute by point IDs, and that would be if you're making a graphic just for one specific controller and you only wanted to pick points directly from the database without being able to use the graphic for multiple devices. So relative by tags is the choice I want here. And then there's two sections below that, points and add components for, and you notice there's a vertical scroll bar depending on the kind of vertical resolution of your screen. You might have to scroll down more to see the components section. And so the way I do it now, it's a little bit different than in the lab guide here. So we did choose the VAV template. We did choose equip in VAV. We did choose by tags. So points, it says select all VAV points. And so that's fine. That's what I usually do now. So in the point section, you can just click on the first point and just drag down till they're all selected from aux temperature supplier all the way down to zone temperature. And then make sure you scroll down so you can see the component section. And once you have selected all the points, it'll give you the option to add components for some or all of those points. And this is where I go a little bit different than the lab guide. Here it says, select the points, primary airflow, heating requirement, and aux temperature supply air. And that's really the only three that we need. So this is the flow ring for primary airflow. There's a heating coil that's linked to the heating requirement, and then there's a little duct sensor for the supply air input. But what I've gotten in the habit of doing is just selecting components for all of the points. And that way I don't have to really think about it. I don't have to plan my graphic out in advance. And so if I just by default add components for all of the points, I can very quickly delete the ones that I don't need just by highlighting it and pushing the delete key on my keyboard. And the reason I do that is I have found it's easier to delete a component I don't need than to add one that I forgot. So just to recap, give your graphic a name, choose the VAV template, leave the filter as equip in VAV, relative by tags is what we want, and then select all the points, and then select components for all of the points. And we're actually going to end up deleting most of the components, but again, it's very quick to delete them, as we'll see here in a minute. To review your choices, click OK. It tells you that you have successfully created the graphic. Click OK. And then here on the right side, underneath all graphics, it has the name of the graphic that you just created. Depending on the resolution of your screen, I mentioned that you can use the zoom within Chrome to kind of change zoom in, zoom out. Occasionally, when you don't need the right sidebar, you can hide that too just by clicking these 4 squares on the right side of the blue sidebar or the blue nav bar, and then it's just a toggle. So if you ever get rid of it and you want to get it back, just click at the same location. So now that you've created the My VAV graphic, just click on it, menu slides in from the right, click Edit, and then it will open that graphic for editing in Graphics Builder. And so one of the first things I like to do, we've gotten through all that, is to lock the duct image so that when I'm dragging things around, I don't accidentally move the ductwork. So here it says click on the duct image and then click the lock icon in the properties sidebar. So that means click on your duct image. You've got this left sidebar here. In the properties lower left, it says VAV duct pieces currently unlocked. Click this, click on that icon to toggle it so that it's locked.
What do you do?
So now you can't click on it and move it around. What we want there, so it's kind of locked in place. And then step 8, it says in the tool sidebar on the right, click on magic buttons and then smart label to graphic objects. And that's just going to line things up in a little bit different way. Right now, all my points are kind of overlapped here, and here's all my different components. On the right side, if I go to magic buttons and smart label the graphic objects, it kind of does the opposite. It lines up all my components at the top, and then at least now I see what are referred to as smart labels, which are kind of text displays for all of the points that I've included on the graphic. So what I usually do is start from the right and just decide if I want to keep that component. If so, drag it into the, reposition it. If I don't need it, then delete it. So if you click on any of the components in the properties view, it'll kind of give you an indication as to which point is associated with that component. So this sensor is associated with the zone temperature point. So I don't need that one. So you just press the delete key on your keyboard. Next is the flow ring associated with the primary airflow in point. So I can drag that into the ductwork. It kind of snaps into place. And then be especially careful with the ones that are fans, because fan is kind of the default image that will show if the software doesn't see anything else that it thinks is kind of relevant. So this fan is associated with the operating state override. I don't need that, so I'll delete it.
Hey, how did you get the ring in there again? So I have that menu opened where it has all the points.
Yeah, drag it in.
Here, let me. This is Colin or Jason that is asking a question.
I got it in there, but how did you know that that was the exact one to pick?
Oh, yeah. So when you click on it here in the properties view, lower left, below basic and advanced, it says primary airflow model 450. So that primary airflow tells me that it's associated with the primary airflow point.
Okay, so you just pick one, and just by seeing what it's labeled as is whether you use it or not?
So you got to, do you want a component for that point? So I do want a component for primary airflow because that's the flow ring. So I drag that into the duct. So as you pick each component, just look at the name to see, do you really want a graphical component for that specific point? Like I don't need a fan for low zone temp alarm, right? So for this fan, I just press the delete key on my keyboard to delete it. And I just work my way from right to left. This heating coil is related to the heating requirement. So I do want to show, then it'll show more red as more heat is added and less red as the heating requirement ramps down. So you can snap that into the ductwork.
So like for example, I hit the next one on here and it shows up as low zone temp alarm. We don't need that. Or actually it says
correct. So you can just
centrifugal fan left is actually what it's called.
Well, but when you click on it, above the option here in the white box, it tells you the point name associated with it, right? So here in my fan, this is for high zone temp alarm. So I don't need a component for the high zone temp alarm. I don't want to see a fan to represent the high zone temp alarm point, right? So then you just delete the ones you don't need.
All right, so I clicked that coil there. It says option is
No, don't worry about the option. Worry about the text above.
Okay, so heating requirement. That I'll use.
So that one is the coil, right?
Right.
So you want to drag that into the ductwork because you want to see kind of an animation or some graphical representation of the heating requirement. I want to see this as more red as the heating requirement ramps up and less red as the heating requirement ramps down.
Right.
So then I don't need a fan for control state, so I hit delete. And then here's a duct sensor for the supplier input, so I can drag that into the right edge, either at the edge of the box or into the near the register.
You said that's zone temperature?
Auxiliary temp.
What the heck is that?
Zone temperature, you don't need a widget or component for zone temperature. So the three that I kept are the flow ring for primary airflow, the heating coil for heating requirement, and the duct sensor for aux temperature supplier. Those are the three I kept. And so that's why in the guide, it said just pick those three, because those are the three that I wanted to keep. But what I have found is sometimes when I'm building a graphic, I forget to add one because I hadn't really planned out the graphic that, specifically ahead of time. And then I realize, I forgot the fourth point. So then I got to drag it in and make the association. And I find that takes more time than to just delete ones that I don't need.
Okay, great.
So here's our 3 components. And then step 10 says in the tool sidebar, go find smart label to graphic objects again. And what it's going to do then is take the smart label, which is kind of a text box for the point, and put it near the component, because usually you want to see the text near the component that is displaying associated with the point. So smart label to graphic objects puts the primary airflow smart label near the flow ring, the heating requirement near the heating coil, and the aux temperature supply air near the duct sensor. So then you can reposition those so that they don't overlap. You can resize them. You click on any one of them, or you can do multi-select with Control and Shift. Then you have this resize option on the right if you want to make it smaller, medium, large, or extra large. And then all these smart labels here on the left that I don't need, that's basically for all the components that I deleted. If you just draw a little narrow strip that covers the box, it doesn't need to completely cover the box, but just kind of a little strip, then they all get highlighted, and then you can press the delete key on your keyboard to get rid of them. In some cases, you don't want you want to edit the text. Like for this, I don't want this to say aux temperature supply air. I just want it to say supply temp as an example. If you just click on that smart label, and then on the right side, click on smart label short names, because this whole box is a smart label. The short name is the text displayed in the upper area of the smart label. So if I click on my supply air temp smart label, then click smart label short names, it automatically selects that smart label. And then I can click apply, and then it says, okay, now go ahead and change your short name to what you want to see in the box. So you can enter something like supply temp. If you then click apply, it doesn't look like anything changed. If you click this little refresh icon, the little circular arrows in the top right near the blue preview button, then you'll see the change.
How did you change the size?
You have to go to, it says floor, it says resize. I click on one, it says click on one.
And then the next thing we want to add is what we call an overview box, which is just like a table of points. And so in this case, I'm going to add an overview box with 12 points. So there's 2 columns, each with 6 points in them. And so by default, it's one big tall column. And then, but once you change the width to accommodate multiple columns, it'll automatically resize. And so if you're going to do multiple columns, then to make it look a little bit better, it works out if you choose points that evenly divide into your number of columns. So if I'm going to have 2 columns, it looks best if I have an even number of points, right? If I have 13 points, then what ends up happening is the one on the bottom is like a full width of the screen of the box, which looks a little weird. So it doesn't affect functionality. It's just sort of an aesthetic thing. And so when I add my overview box, I'm going to add 12 points. So here, step 12, it says in the tools sidebar, click on overview box and then select new. So since I have my magic buttons menu already shown, here's overview box. If for some reason you're at the base graphics builder menu, just click on magic buttons underneath tools on the right. Here's overview box listed underneath equip, and then click new. And then the create overview box window appears. Mini group just makes it a little bit smaller by default. I have plenty of space here. I don't need to worry about making it smaller. And then I have a checkbox for all of the points that are available for use on this graphic, and I put a check in the box for each point that I want to include in the overview box. And so what it says is select all the points except control state and operating state OR. You can also exclude the point called average octemp SP, because we don't really need that. And then that should get us 12 points. So aux temperature, all my cooling aux set points. So I skipped average octemp SP. I'm going to skip control state. High zone temp alarm, all my heating set points and my heating requirement, and my zone temp alarm. Then I'm going to skip operating state OR. And then I'm going to pick primary airflow and zone temperature. So that should be 12 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So do you have 12 points selected for your overview box?
Yep.
Okay. So then click apply. And then you have the option to give your overview box a new name other than the default of overview. So in my lab guide, it says you can name it something like point values. There's some different icons that you can choose for the overview box, and the point icon is this little icon here. So you can choose a different one. I'll just leave the default for now, but there's a bunch of different icons you can choose from, and you'll get to know some of them as you start working with the software more. You can actually click in that icon box and it gives you a bunch of names. It doesn't show you which icon it is, but those are, so I'm just going to leave the default one, which was point. And then there is a name and a number for each point. So the name is the name that will appear in the overview box, and the number is its position in the overview box. So it goes from left to right, top to bottom. So it goes 1 is the top left, 2 is top right, and then we go to second row for 3 and 4, third row for 5 and 6, all the way down to the sixth row is 11 and 12. And so by default, it's in alphabetical order, which is fine for the purposes of this. Isn't to put these in psychologically the best order. It's just to show you how to make an overview box. You can change the name. So like, for example, if I wanted to change that aux temperature supply air to just say supply temp, I can just go into that box and type supply temp. It's obviously not alphabetical anymore, but I think you kind of get your choices in terms of editing. So choose a label, choose an icon, get your names and orders the way you like. And you can always change them after the fact if you don't like the way it is. I'll show you how to do that. So once you get your initial setup the way you like it, click apply. And then you get one column of the overview box. But if you click on that overview box to select it and then get just right inside the right edge and drag to the right to make it wider. When you make it wide enough, it'll go to 2 columns. If you went wider still, you can go to 3 columns. And then once you've made it wider, you don't need as much height, so you can drag from the bottom edge and make it shorter and then reposition it so that it doesn't overlap with your graphic. And so the supply temp has that little orange border around it, and that's just telling me that I don't have a sensor connected to that input, so the value is not a good value. So did you get an overview box added and were you able to resize it?
Yes.
Okay. And so if you ever wanted to edit the overview box, you can. You just click on the box, and you can add multiple overview boxes if you wanted some in different areas of the screen. But if you want to edit after the fact, you can just click on the overview box and then go to your overview box menu. And so edit lets you change the names and the order if you want to do that. And then add is actually add and delete. It's if you maybe you want to add more points to your overview box or maybe take some points away, you click add, and that's where you can change the checkboxes. So You can certainly edit them after the fact, but in this case, this one looks fine for me. The gears are for any writable point. And so I could click on, once I'm actually viewing it, not in Graphics Builder, but in the Graphics app, then I could click on the gears to change a set point, whatever the writable value is. So let's see where we are. We made the overview box. We did that. We resized and repositioned. Yeah, so now we're ready to save. So to save the graphic, you can just go to the floppy disk icon. If your screen is not wide enough to show all the icons, then you'll just get this grid, and you can click on the grid to see the choices like Save Graphic. So depending on your resolution, you may or may not have the full toolbar there. But if you do, you can just click Save. And then in the Save Project window, then it shows you that here's the file name. You could change it if you wanted to. And you could change the graphic on filter if you wanted to. But I don't. I just want to click the blue Save button. So now it saves that graphic into the database. You can click this blue preview button so that you can see what it would look like in the graphics app. And so, for example, if you wanted to change a set point, like the cooling occ temp SP, if I wanted to change it, mine is showing 67, I could click on the gears. I could click on the set default button to change. You could either type in a new value or use the up and down arrows to change the value. So it's got to be within the range. I think 74 to 78 is actually the limit from the database. So then I click apply, and then it should write that down into the controller, and then the value updates. So that's the VAV graphic. If you actually want to see it truly in the graphics app, yeah, I'll do this. I'll show you why we're going to update the thumbnail. So you can close out of the preview mode, and the graphics app, kind of the graphics viewer, is also nav sensitive. So I want to make sure I'm still a VAV equipped. And if I go to gears and I click on graphics, then here on the right, it'll show me the graphics that are available for this equip. So there's a graphic named MyVAV, and by default, you get this HTML5 thumbnail, which I don't particularly like. And we can change that to make it, we can make a picture of the actual graphic itself. I like to show that as my thumbnail. But if you click on it, it'll show you the graphic for 102. And remembering that we built the graphic for all our VAVs, I could go to a different floor, pick a different VAV, click on the My VAV graphic on the right, and I'll see that same graphic, but for the new nav location, just to kind of confirm that I have built a graphic that is available to multiple equips. And so to change that thumbnail, you do that in Graphics Builder. And this isn't described in the lab, I don't think, but it's something I like to do. So if you make sure you're naved to a VAV equip in the blue nav bar, go to Menu, Graphics Builder, and then I like to scroll down to Menu. So there's Close, then Launch, then New, but if you scroll down all the way at the bottom, it's Menu. And then that will show you any graphics that are available for that equip. So click on your My VAV graphic and edit. And then here's the upload thumbnail tool. But before I can upload a thumbnail, I need to save a picture of the graphic. So I think the easiest way is to click the preview button once you have the graphic open for editing. And then you can use either the Windows snipping tool or snip and sketch. If you just click on the search box and type the word snip, you should see the snip and sketch app, possibly the snipping tool. Snip and sketch is a little bit newer. They have similar functionality. So if I click the snip and sketch app, try that again. I closed it accidentally. Snip and sketch. So then I can click on this new button here, and then I could drag a rectangle to show the relevant parts of the graphic image. And then it kind of shows me what I've captured. And then if I click this save icon here, I can save this image on my computer in the location that's easy to find. So I'll just click save. A lot of times I'll just save on the desktop because that's an easy place to find, and then I usually end up deleting it once I know I don't need it anymore. So pick a location that you like, such as your desktop, that you'll remember to look at, find that location later. You give your file a name. Something as simple as VAV is fine.
Yeah.
The type of PNGs are fine. PNG, JPEG, bitmap, GIF, all the standard image formats are good. Actually, it looks like maybe not bitmap. Oh, this is for saving, not uploading. So I'll save it as ping, vav.ping. And then if you close Snip and Sketch and go back to the IntelliFront browsing window, you can just click on Upload Thumbnail underneath the Tools menu on the right. And then here where it says New Image, click on Choose File and click on the VAV. Go to your save location, like the desktop. Click on vav.ping or whatever file name you choose in the location where you saved it. And click Open. It'll show you that name. And then once you click Apply, then it uploads that image into the database. And so now if I close out of preview mode, I'm still naved to a VAV in the blue bar at the top. But now if I go pick the graphics app, now I get this thumbnail instead of that HTML5 image, which I think looks better. And that same thumbnail is shown no matter which VAV. So I think that's an easy way to make it, give your customer kind of a preview of what graphic they're going to choose, so they kind of know what to expect when they click on that graphic. Plus, I just think that HTML5 thumbnail is I don't think it's very attractive. So were you able to upload a thumbnail and associate it with your graphic?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good deal. So that's the end of Lab 3.